information.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Ahead in the next 5 minutes, live local news for the First Coast from the WJCT News team.
Who's next in line? I'm Melissa Ross, and just ahead this hour on First Coast Connect, a look at the latest rules on just who's eligible to get a vaccine in Florida, as we speak with Mia Jones, CEO of Agape Family Health. That's coming up. Then later.
You know, I've been through a lot, and I think that my story really represents that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, that there's hope.
A conversation with voting rights activist Desmond Meade and his new book, Let My People Vote. Plus exciting news for the Jack's Jumbo Shrimp. All of that and more is just ahead. After the day's news.
Live from NPR News, I'm Janine Herbst. The number of European countries suspending the use of AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine continues to grow. NPR's Jason Beaubien reports this is happening despite the World Health Organization saying it continues to have confidence in the immunization.
Review committees from both the WHO and the European Medicines Agency are looking at whether there's a link between the AstraZeneca shot and a small number of blood clots that have occurred in people after getting the vaccine. There have been some 30 incidents where people have suffered hemorrhages in the days after getting immunized. The WHO's top scientist says the rate of blood clots among the roughly 5 million Europeans who've received the AstraZeneca COVID vaccine is no higher than you'd expect to see in the general population. But regulators in multiple European nations, as well as the Democratic Republic of Congo and Thailand, have said they're suspending immunization campaigns with AstraZeneca as a precautionary measure. Jason Beaubien, NPR News.
2 men have been arrested, charged with assaulting U.S. Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick with bear spray during the January 6th riot. But they don't know yet whether it caused the officer's death. 39-year-old George Tanos and 32-year-old Julian Cotter were arrested on Sunday. NPR's Greg Myrie has more.
Court documents say there's a video of the accused with a canister of chemical spray that was used on Officer Sicknick and 2 other officers. And this forced the officers to retreat and temporarily blinded them.
The Department of Justice has opened a federal murder investigation, but no one has been charged so far. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin are in Tokyo today, the first cabinet-level trip of the Biden administration. NPR's Anthony Kuhn reports they reaffirmed the U.S.'s alliance with Japan and addressed the challenges posed by China.
The U.S. reaffirmed in a joint statement its unwavering commitment to Japan's defense by all means, including nuclear weapons. The U.S. and Japanese representatives said China presents political, military, economic, and technological challenges to the alliance and pledged to oppose what they called China's coercive behavior towards countries in the region. They also pledged to work for the denuclearization of North Korea. The sister of the North's leader Kim Jong-un fired off Pyongyang's first message to the Biden administration warning it against hostile acts. Secretaries Blinken and Austin traveled to Seoul Wednesday for meetings with their South Korean counterparts. Anthony Kuhn, NPR News, Seoul.
Jury selection continues today in the trial of Derek Chauvin, the former Minneapolis police officer charged in the death of George Floyd. So far, 9 of the 12 jurors and 4 alternates needed have been seated. And a decision could come today from the judge over the defense team's claim that the recently announced $27 million civil settlement could taint the jury pool. This is NPR.
The time is 9:04. This is WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. Florida's unemployment rate continues to improve as vaccinations increase and people return to the workforce. The State Department of Economic Opportunity reported yesterday Florida's unemployment rate decreased to 4.8% in January, down 3 percentage points from 0.3 percentage points from December. The national jobless rate was 6.3%. In January. Adrienne Johnston, the department's chief economist, says even as people return to the overall labor force, Florida's still struggling leisure and hospitality industry will continue to be a focus.
We are seeing people going back into employment status. We're actually seeing a reduction in unemployed. So that job growth is connecting people back into the labor market, and people are getting jobs.
The January rate represents 482,000 out-of-work Floridians from a labor force that has fallen to a little more than 10.5 million people. The House recently passed legislation that would require background checks for gun purchases, a signature Democratic issue for decades, but there wasn't so much as a statement issued by the White House. President Joe Biden's views on gun regulation have evolved along with his party. Once reluctant to impose restrictions that blue-collar Democrats oppose, the party has moved to a near-unanimous call to do something about gun violence after a spate of mass shootings. 69 degrees, partly cloudy in Jacksonville.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include iDrive with Remote PC, providing remote access to PCs, Macs, and servers from anywhere, assisting those working from home, and also enabling remote assistance for customers at remotepc.com.
Is the state moving fast enough on vaccines? Good morning. We're live from Studio 5. I'm Melissa Ross, and this is First Coast Connect. Thanks for listening. Just ahead, Florida's vaccine rollout, the issues, the controversies, and who's eligible right now to get their shot. What are your questions? Give us a call. It's 549-2937. Then later, some exciting news for the Jack's Jumbo Shrimp. And a whole lot more coming up. But first this hour, the latest on the pandemic. More than 32,000 Florida residents have died from coronavirus so far, even as vaccines are going into more and more arms around the state. Now, starting this week, anyone 60 and older is eligible to be vaccinated. We expect the age to drop pretty soon so that more people can get in line for their shot. But at the same time, people who don't necessarily fit into any of the eligible categories had been successful sometimes in standing by at vaccine sites around the area, getting those leftover shots at the end of the day. One site where that type of standby effort had been popular was at Edward Waters College, the site run by Agape Family Health. Word of mouth spread, and people would show up in the afternoons, and sometimes they'd get lucky and get a leftover shot. Because, of course, the healthcare workers want to get shots in arms and not waste any doses. But recently, it seemed the state had shut down that activity, leading to a lot of questions. With more on that and the latest on the vaccine rollout, we are so pleased to welcome this morning Mia Jones, CEO at Agape Family Health. They administer the site at EWC. Mia is on the line now. Mia, so good to have you. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me today, Melissa.
And here's our question to callers. What are your questions about vaccines? Who's eligible? When you might be able to get your shot? How the state is handling things? Give us a call, 549-2937. Emails to firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. Tweets to @MelissaInJax. And our Facebook page is open as well. So, Mia, it's my understanding that the site you've been so ably running for some time now can administer hundreds of doses a day over at Edward Waters College, and that you had been working to try to really go through all of the supply each day, which meant that every once in a while you'd let somebody get a leftover shot who showed up in the afternoon and waited online. Then it seemed that the state shut that down, not only at your location, but at some other sites. Can you explain how this is going and if there has been any change in protocol?
So what has taken place, we had people, they were calling them the vaccine hunters, going out various places within the city, outside of the city. And we worked really hard to make sure that every day we were meeting what we were allocated. So if we were allocated 200, my goal was that we would administer 200. If that meant our priority was and continues to be to provide vaccines within a community that has a number of health challenges and other socioeconomic challenges as well. And so when we open up, that's our focus. We're trying to get the people in the neighborhood, in and around the neighborhood, to get them in. At the end of the day, as had been the practice prior to us starting, whatever was already drawn up into syringes is administered to whoever might be in line, whether they meet the criteria or not. And it got to the point that the line started being formed first thing in the morning. So you would have people wrapped around the building, and that really creates a situation where when the people would come up, they would see the line. So if you got a senior in your car and you see that line, you're like, oh man, I'm not going to fight that battle. So what we have done is our staff goes out in the line throughout the day continuously, calling for those priority categories. So when we were at 65 and older, we would look for the 65 and older. We would look for those teachers. We would look for those with medical that would be considered medically vulnerable. And as we have done that, that has seemed to work for us. And again, at the end of the day, anything that's in a syringe, my goal is that it will be in an arm before I get in my car.
Sure. And the word had spread about this. But then what we had heard anecdotally was that you over at the EWC site were told by the state not to do that anymore, not to administer the leftover doses to anyone who might show up. Is that true?
No, that's not true.
That's not true.
No, that's not true. So any doses that are in syringes at the time when we get close to the end of the day, we will administer that. That continues to be our practice. We are working closer to monitor how many we draw up into the syringe. So for each vial, you get a minimum of 10 shots out of that vial, and sometimes you might be able to get 11. So we make sure that if we get extra shots out of the vials, then we know that we at least have those that are available for whoever might be in line at the end of the day. In addition to that, if it's 4 o'clock and somebody, or, we might have 3 or 4 people that might get in the line and we don't have anything in the syringes, so then we'll open another vial. And so we monitor that throughout the entire day and work to make sure that we are able to service those within our community.
And as you mentioned, a Facebook group called Florida Vaccine Hunters has been publishing information for people who can find a place to get what has been termed a standby dose or a leftover dose. People have been driving for hours sometimes to your site at Edward Waters College to try to get a shot. What do you think about the state's rollout? Of course, we want the most vulnerable people vaccinated first, and that continues to be a priority. But as the supply expands so rapidly, is the state moving fast enough to expand categories of the eligible, given that at some sites we're hearing thousands of doses are going unused, there aren't any lines because the eligibility requirements are still pretty narrow?
Yes. Unfortunately, I don't get to participate in the governor's decision as to what he will allow at what time. I think that this is something that we have not really experienced in recent years, and so it's totally new to him and to his team. And as a result, I believe they are trying to make sure those most vulnerable are taken care of, but at the same time, you have people who are younger than the age restriction at this very moment that want it. And what I've found is that oftentimes within various families, they look to one person. to see if that person does something, then they can convince the rest of the family to do it. And sometimes that's an older person, and sometimes that's a younger person. I know that I've had called seniors and said, have you gotten your shot yet? And they say, no, I'm waiting on my son, I'm waiting on my daughter so that they can get it and we can all get it at the same time. And so I honestly believe that as we open it up more and more and we allow those within our community to make the decision for what's best for them and their family, that we will start to see more people taking advantage of this opportunity.
We're speaking with Mia Jones, CEO of Agape Family Health. They run the vaccination site at Edward Waters College. Mary emails the show. There's a reason people are calling the state's rollout the Hunger Games. It's just a game of luck to find someone willing to break restrictions to get a shot in the arm. If people want vaccines, give them to us, she says. The more vaccinated, the closer we are to living a normal life. Stop playing politics with our health. Let's go to your calls. 549-2937. Lynn on the South Side. Hi, Lynn. Good morning. What's your vaccination story?
Morning. Good morning. I was just calling to kind of weigh in on this. So we went to the Gateway FEMA site on Sunday. We have a friend that was there the Sunday before. She did not qualify, but they went late in the evening right before they closed, and her husband were able to get leftover vaccines. So they had told us, hey, go try. You might as well try. So we went on this Sunday. And when we got there at 6:30, they closed at 7. It was completely empty. I mean, there was no one there. There was no line. There was no one there, and except for the people that were working there. And they told us, well, if you don't qualify, you can wait, but you probably won't get one. So we waited, and at the end of the day, when they were closing, the guy came out and talked to us, and he said, you can put your name on this list with your phone number, and but we don't have any leftover vaccines. And then another guy came out and he said, we never have leftover vaccines, because if we only have 3 people here waiting for a vaccine that qualify, we won't even open a new vial. We'll tell them to come back the next day. So we will never, ever have leftovers. And I was thinking in my head, well, I know for a fact that you had leftovers last week because I have a friend that her and her husband got it. But as has been kind of talked about, I know that site, it said in the paper, has about 2,000 vaccines a day available. And I think on Thursday in the paper it said that they only had given out 840 doses. So every day that they have empty chairs and vials sitting there, they're just accumulating more and more supply.
Yeah.
And the demand is definitely high. And if the goal is to get as many people that want vaccines as possible, of course, clearly everyone who's vulnerable and older that meets criteria should be first. But, lowering the age to 60, I still think, there's a lot of people that want it and a lot of vaccines just sitting there. And we're going to have, another spike and more mutations if we don't get people vaccinated. So anyway, that's my comment.
Yeah, Lynn, thank you for that. And, Mia Jones, we've heard so many anecdotal reports like that. Sometimes we get conflicting information from different people at the same vaccination site. We haven't been able to get the state to answer our questions about this, why they won't expand eligibility. For example, in Michigan, the governor there announced beginning in April, everyone 18 and older will be able to be vaccinated.
Oh, I love to hear that. One thing that we have to keep in mind is that some of the sites are federal sites, some of the sites are state sites. And so you have different guidelines at each site, unfortunately, which I think is just confusing and a mess for the community. But it's the rules that we're having to go by. But, every day is something different. We have been blessed to be able to really focus on those that are extremely medically vulnerable, and we can receive those constituents to let them come in and get their vaccines, really being able to get into the community. What we've learned because we are what they call a health equity site, and our focus is the community around us and being able to provide the service for those that are very vulnerable. We are really looking for ways that we can reach out to the community. So this past Saturday, we sent teams out to literally go door to door. We will continue to do that throughout our time administering the vaccines. And what we found is people as close as a block away from us did not know we were there or what we were doing. And so in my mind, I said, well, we've got signs out here that say who we are and what we're doing. We have big signs that are there, electronic signs, road signs that are there to say, that we're here and what we're doing. But what I realized is that oftentimes when we're within our own space, we don't pay attention as closely to those things that may be new and pop up, or those things that have become normal to us. So we've been there over a month now, and we're starting to see people come and say, oh, I had no idea you were here. You mean I could have gotten this done earlier? And I'm saying, yes, you could have gotten this done earlier. And so whatever we can do to make sure that we are able to get the word out, we're starting to work with other organizations to be able to help us to get the word out. It's one thing, and we appreciate you and your team helping to let people know where they can go and what's going on. We appreciate the other news outlets, but it really takes an ongoing effort. And some people don't even look at the news anymore. Some people aren't listening to the radio. They'll listen to something that has no commercials. So all of a sudden they're cut out of the message being brought to them as a result of the way they are going about their daily lives.
Well, let's repeat it again. We are speaking with Mia Jones, CEO of Agape Family Health, and they've been running for some time now a vaccination site, free vaccination site at Edward Waters College. This is on the EWC campus. You're right near the big gym, isn't that right, Mia?
Yes.
On a side, it's on a side street. It's not on the main drag as you come through campus.
Right. So the big gym is on the front, and once you come up to the big gym, you'll see a big road sign that says COVID vaccine on it, and you make that turn on Spires and come down to 9th, and we are in the building that used to be the James Weldon Johnson gym. The school district and Edward Waters College have transferred that to Edward Waters, and so now it's a part of their campus. And so we're right there in that second gym.
And what are your questions about the vaccination rollout? We'll go to your calls in a moment with Mia Jones, CEO of Agape Family Health. 549-2937. Lots of tweets. Lee tweets the show. If each site isn't running out of available vaccines each day, then the restrictions are too tight. Shots in arms is the priority. She says going door to door and partnering with social services to administer vaccines is the best way to get to the most vulnerable. Mia Jones, should that be part of the state's effort?
It is actually a part of the state's effort. We are actually in the process of staffing and getting ready to roll out an effort in line with that. We will be going to the most vulnerable, those that are what are considered homebound, and we are going to administer their shots there. And so we'll have teams that will be going out to them. But in addition to that, we will also find other ways for us to reach out into the community and to get people in their neighborhoods, which we know is definitely the best way to do it, but it's not always the easiest way. So we have to work within the confines of what we have. I have requested that we be able to do more outreach and to vaccinate outside of the gym itself. And so we are looking forward to being able to roll that out in the immediate future.
That's great. And if you have a homebound person, here's an email address so that you can request this. Our director, Josh Torres, just snagged this. Homebound vaccine at em.myflorida.com. What are your questions about vaccine eligibility? Let's go to Chris in Clay County. Hi, Chris. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning.
Go ahead.
Yes. I had an 8:30 appointment this morning at Clay. I went down for my appointment to get my second dose. They refused to give it to me because I did not get my first dose there.
Huh.
And I don't understand why that makes any sense.
Okay. I'm sure that's not uncommon. So, Mia Jones, what about people like Chris? What should he do?
I didn't hear what his incident.
He
situation
went to get a second dose at a site that was different from where he got his first dose, so they wouldn't give him the second dose.
There will only be two reasons why they wouldn't give him his second dose, or they shouldn't give him his second dose. The first would be if they are carrying a different brand. So if he got Pfizer and they only have Moderna, then they would not give him the second dose. The other reason could be that he might be outside of that 4-day before and after window. If you have Pfizer for your first shot, you have 21 days and then 4 days either before or after. And then if you take Moderna, you have 4 days before or after to take that second dose. At Edward Waters, we are administering Moderna. And so we have had a few people who have come and had gotten their first dose of Moderna other places, and we were able to administer that second dose. Pfizer is being administered at Gateway and at Regency. I'm not sure about, I think I heard him say he's in Clay County. I'm not sure
Clay County.
What the specifics are in Clay, but I know those two sites are administering Pfizer and Moderna. Like I said, we're administering Moderna.
Okay.
And Johnson & Johnson, I know it's at Gateway, but I'm not sure if it's at Regency or not.
All righty. Let's bring in Aaron in Springfield. Hi, Aaron. Go ahead.
Hey, forgive me for being anecdotal. I have a friend.
Lots of anecdotes out there.
Right. I have a friend who went to that site, and they were waiting in line and was told that they were going to be able to get it. And then apparently y'all received a call that said you can't give it out to people under 65, and was pretty much told, hey, y'all have to leave. And unfortunately, because we've thawed out these doses, we're going to have to throw them away.
Right. That story certainly made the rounds. Yeah. Thank you, Aaron, for that. That was a story shared on social media, Mia Jones. Can you respond to that? Because that was being shared on social media. But you're saying, though, that that's not true.
Correct. So our protocol for our waste avoidance is pretty cut and dry. If we have a valve that is open that we have already drawn the into the syringe, we don't leave a valve partially filled and then come back the next day and use it. Once we puncture that valve, we will take everything out of it, and we'll have those syringes there and ready to go. If we have people that come in at 4 o'clock, and we see that we've got a line of eligible people, then we will make sure that we draw up enough for them. If we end up only needing 4 out of a vial of 10, then the other 6 or 7 are available to whoever would be in line that may or may not meet the criteria. But if we have somebody in line that qualifies for it, then we'll make sure that we continue to draw. And then once we don't have anybody else that qualifies, then we'll use up whatever we have left, and that's on the table in the syringe.
I hope that clears it up for folks. Again, a vaccination site has been open at Edward Waters College for some time, administered by Agape Family Health. Everyone's 60 and older now eligible. Eligibility is expected to expand as the month rolls ahead. And I want to thank you, Mia Jones, CEO at Agape, for joining us with vital information. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, and we look forward to continuing to serve the community.
And much more still ahead later on the show. Some exciting news for the jumbo shrimp. We'll stop by the ballpark, but up next.
I've been through a lot, and I think that my story really represents that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, that there's hope.
A conversation with voting rights activist Desmond Meade and his new book, Let My People Vote. We'll be right back. Well, he's a champion of democracy and voting rights. Desmond Meade is executive director of the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. He led the fight for voting rights for more than 1 million Floridians with a prior felony conviction. He's also out this month with a new book, Let My People Vote. And Desmond says legislation both here in Florida and in the U.S. Congress is part of his fight. I spoke with him. Desmond Meade, good to talk to you once again. Thanks for being with us.
Well, thank you for having me on the show again.
I'm excited to have you back on because there's a lot that's happened since we last spoke. Beginning with legislation in Florida around clemency reform, restoring civil rights to about 600,000 people. Let's talk about that first. Bring us up to date.
Wow, yes, this is something that I am really excited about. Last Wednesday, the governor made some recommendations to his cabinet clemency board, and they approved some policy changes as it relates to clemency and major areas which they touch. Basically says that anyone who qualifies for Amendment 4, people who've had their voting rights restored under Amendment 4 would now automatically have their civil rights restored. And this is big because prior to Amendment 4, the right to vote, sit on a jury, run for office, they were all part of the civil rights that folks would have to apply to the governor to get. And these, the restoration of the civil rights impacted more than just voting. For instance, in my case, even though Amendment 4 passed and I was able to have my right to vote back immediately, because I didn't have my civil rights restored, I still could not practice law, even though I graduated law school with a degree. I couldn't sit for the Florida bar until my rights have been restored. And also, as it relates to occupational license, because there are some occupational licenses which you would not be able to get unless your rights have been restored. And then housing. So even though I had my right to vote, I still had a hard time finding a place that I could house my family, safe and affordable housing, because a lot of HOAs would have restrictions that would prevent me from owning or even renting a home until my civil rights have been restored. So this policy change that was made last week have the potential to have a tremendous impact on the lives of hundreds of thousands of returning citizens, as well as their family members.
You talk about these issues in your book, Let My People Vote. You've really led the movement for the rights of returning citizens to vote, in Florida especially, but really all around the country. And so if you could, share a little bit more about what motivated you to publish this book.
Yeah, I think at the heart of it was the fact that, I've been through a lot, and I think that my story really represents, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, that there's hope. There's so many of us, we have our personal challenges that we go through every day. Some folks are not doing as well as others. But in spite of wherever, what position you're in spite of what title you may or may not have or how much money you may or may not have, that, you still have the potential of overcoming obstacles. And in addition to that, they're having an impact, on people's lives. I always joke that when I was named Time Magazine 100 most influential person in the world in 2019, that they put The Rock right on the cover, and I told them they should have put me on the cover because why not? Because it wasn't because I was like conceited or anything, right? But the reason why I said that because I felt that it would have been a powerful message that people could know that you don't have to be a movie star, you don't have to be a celebrity, you don't have to be a athlete or a politician to have an impact on the lives of others, right? That you can be one of the 100 most influential people in the world in spite of whatever situation you're in. Because here I was, a crack addict, homeless, been in prison, been arrested quite a few times, and getting ready to kill myself, right? And so if I can move from that space in life to being one of the 100 most influential people in the entire world, then that means that anyone has an opportunity to overcome obstacles. Anyone have an opportunity to be great, and you become great by being willing to serve.
Sure. And, I think in light of those recent accolades you've enjoyed, the news that Governor DeSantis declined to issue you a pardon didn't sit well with so many people who followed your story and the leadership of this movement that you've become known for. How do you see his move there?
It definitely didn't sit well with me or my wife, right? But the sad reality is that was the governor denying my pardon request is a perfect example of what happens when people allow politics to trump the needs of people, right? When you have politicians that are more concerned about their partisanship rather than the lives of real people, you can get things like that. And unfortunately, I was a casualty in some partisan battle that's going on the clemency board. At the end of the day, and the governor, every clemency hearing, he always said the same thing, that clemency, the focus of clemency is on what a person has done after they've made their mistakes, right? How have you, quote unquote, rehabilitated yourself? How have you become an asset to your community or to the state or to the country? And I think that, I was a textbook case of a person that made mistakes in their lives, but after that mistake have really turned their life around and have become an asset to the community. And that is what clemency focuses on. And so for the governor to use, my court martial as a mistake flies against the purpose of what clemency is all about.
And so the fight continues. I know you have been involved in getting momentum around H.R. 1, also known as the For the People Act of 2021. This legislation is working its way through Congress, and it has to do with voting. If it passes, the For the People Act would expand voting rights. It would reform campaign finance laws, limit the gerrymandering of districts, among other things. Now, this is expected to have a rough time in the Senate, in the U.S. Senate, and that has increased calls for the Democrats in Washington to get rid of the filibuster because they care so much about the For the People Act and are so concerned that it pass. What are your thoughts about that?
So part of me thinks that, I think framing it as this is about voting is probably limiting the purpose and the impact of H.R. 1. Because I think it's much deeper than that. And the reason why I say that is because I go back to my experience when I voted in the August primary for the first time in over 30 years. And then I voted in my very first ever presidential election, November of last year. And what did I experience, right? And let me tell you, when I was approaching the voting location, I realized that I was walking on a sacred ground, a hollow ground, because thinking about the lives that were lost, the blood that was shed, right? So I could have the right to vote, right? And then when I get in there, and as I get my ballot and I walk into the booth by myself, right, I'm thinking about how I'm actually engaging in a very sacred act because of the lives that was lost. And I realized that I wasn't there as a Democrat. I wasn't there as a Republican. I was there as a human being, as an American citizen, right? And what I was engaged in said that I exist, that my voice matters, that it counts, right? And I think that feeling transcended partisan politics. It transcended, even implicit racial biases. And it took us to a very pure and simple place. It talks about our existence, our humanity. And so when we use the word voting, it seems so limited, and it allows itself to be politicized. But I think that voting is beyond being political, right? Voting is more than just that. And so I love the For the People Act, because it is for the people, not just certain types of people, but for all of the people. All Americans should be able to have clear and encumbered access to the ballot box. And voting should be something that we encourage people to do rather than discourage them. We shouldn't be erecting obstacles, right? We should be clearing the pathway. We face that with our fines and fees issues here in Florida, where returning citizens are forced to pay their legal financial obligations before they're able to register to vote. No American should have to choose between putting food on their table or voting, right? No American should have to choose between paying their rent or their mortgage or voting. That it should be free, it should be unencumbered, it should be a holiday when we vote, right? And it should be a celebration.
Right. I want to thank you for being with us. Desmond Meade, Democracy Champion, Executive Director of the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. His new book is Let My People Vote. Thanks, Desmond.
Thank you so much.
Well, opening day for the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp has been pushed back to May, but in the interim, they're making plenty of other news. We're going to get some updates now from Scott Kornberg, the team's media and PR manager. Hey, Scott, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
It's exciting to have you and learn about everything going on with the Jumbo Shrimp. Now, you are moving opening day back at 121 Financial Ballpark to Tuesday, May 4th. So let's begin there. And that, of course, I assume is pandemic related.
It is. So it's actually for a great reason, and we're really obviously in support of that, and they're just trying to get the players vaccinated. And I think there's been a lot of really good progress on that front that we keep reading about in the news, and so they want to be able to make sure those guys get vaccinated before they start playing, because obviously if we think about it from the players' perspective, and we're going to be a AAA baseball team here in Jacksonville this year, which is the highest level of minor league baseball. And with that, we're playing teams this season in Tennessee and North Carolina, in Georgia. So no more bus trips. And in the future, it'll be teams in the Northeast and the Midwest. But these are all plane flights, and the players fly commercial. And obviously, everybody's taking steps to mitigate their risk of contracting the virus. But they want to just do as much as they can for those guys, because when they fly to these road games, they do fly not in a chartered jet like the major league teams, but in a commercial, just like you or I would, to go visit family or go on vacation or whatever. So that's just the reason why, and we're really looking forward to starting up on May 4th, and I think it's a great reason to make sure the players are as healthy as can be, and make sure that we limit as much as we can the chance of a virus outbreak on a team that would maybe stop the season for a week or two, depending on how much that got into the clubhouse. So it's as great a reason as any, and for that we're looking forward to May 4th.
And as you said, you're moving on up to the east side, right? With this move to AAA ball. No more bus for the players. They're going to be flying now. Your executive vice president, Harold Craw, also selected to minor league baseball's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. That also includes representatives from Major League Baseball. So you guys are making lots of interesting and exciting moves.
Yeah, and I think the first thing to note is that none of this stuff happens without the support we have in our community. I think from the very beginning when Major League Baseball and the Miami Marlins kind of, broached about how do we redo, the minor league system, because that happened all throughout last year in which some of the teams were eliminated and some teams like us are moving to different levels. I think what stood out to us in their eyes was that this is a team that's supported no matter what through decades now of its community. And not only that, it's a fast-growing area. I mean, the tourism numbers before the pandemic were records pretty much every single year. The number of people moving to Northeast Florida is, on a rate of top 10 in the entire nation. It's been like that for quite a while now. So I think they saw, this team always draws very well because they've got amazing support from the community. And then the other factors, obviously it's hard to beat what Jacksonville is doing compared to a lot of other cities in America. I think that factored into, placing, fortunately for us, the Jumbo Shrimp at that top level of minor league baseball. And, in regards to Harold and what he's accomplished, he's just as someone who works, for him, he's a tremendous boss. I can go in there with anything about we've got a 10-month-old at home, about being a new parent, and he's got a couple daughters, and just a great person to just sit down and have a conversation with. And I think, between the move to AAA and then obviously the leadership that he's brought to Jacksonville since he's been here, it was probably a no-brainer for Major League Baseball and minor league baseball to put him on their Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, which is the first such committee in AAA for any, length of time. And so, you think about his background, he's still the only African-American general manager in all of minor league baseball. There's 120 teams. And obviously he's not just the only one. He's an award-winning general manager. He's done that several times through his career. So, I could say as someone who works for him that he's just fantastic, not just as a boss, but as a person to go to just to talk with and learn from. And he served as a mentor for a lot of people on our staff. And obviously it's really great that he's being recognized for what he's done and is continuing to do in baseball because, let's face it, diversity is something that baseball maybe has struggled with in the last couple of decades. And Harold is really committed as someone who I could say this as he's really a trailblazer in our industry to try to improve that, not just in Northeast Florida, but also across the country. And that's why he's serving on that committee.
Now, Scott, in the short time we have left, with opening day, May 4th, one exciting thing about having a minor league baseball team in town is it's a lot of fun. You guys come up with a lot of family-friendly and goofy activities for people to enjoy at the ballpark. Can you give us a quick glance into what you might have planned for this season?
So we are finalizing our promotion schedule, and we should have that out in mid-April. But I think there's going to be some really, really cool giveaways this year. I've seen that list of bobbleheads and hats and jerseys and such, and obviously, our fans remember the fun stuff we did even as recently as 2019 with the Florida Man Night. I think we're going to have some really cool stuff. We don't have anything finalized yet, but that's our MO, right? We're obviously really excited about having a AAA baseball team, but the most important thing we do is that affordable family fun, the memory making for families to enjoy fireworks, to get a really cool giveaway, to come out and try some crazy shrimp-related or food items that we have at the concession stand. So I promise we're going to have all of that because we miss having baseball here, Jumbo Shrimp baseball, just as much as our fans miss coming here. So we cannot wait for May 4th, and we do promise another really fun promotional schedule ahead.
Mark your calendar for May 4th. It's opening day at 121 Financial Ballpark, a new season for the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp, now playing AAA ball. They are set to host the Norfolk Tides on Tuesday, May 4th at 7:05 p.m. A fun thing to look forward to. And thank you so much, Scott. He's Scott Kornberg, Media and Public Relations Manager for the Jumbo Shrimp. Have a great time, Scott.
Yeah, thank you again for having me on, and we can't wait till May 4th. We really appreciate your time.
Thanks so much. And in a moment, how Jax Metro, the self-help credit union, is making moves on the city's north side. We'll be right back.
I'm Peter Sagal. While our colleagues at NPR and this station scrambled to cover all the top stories that came flooding down the pipe this past year, we at Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me made sure to cover the important stuff the rest of the news media missed.
This, I now must know. What does a badger smell like?
We want to keep bringing you the answers to the questions that really matter, but we can't do it without your help. Here's how to give.
Please call 353-9528 or visit us online at wjct.org, and thank you.
Cities and states are in line for $350 billion in relief money from that big bill, but let's not get ahead of ourselves, shall we?
We do not see this relief money as a windfall. That money is essentially spoken for.
I'm Kai Rizdal. How one state plans to dig itself out of that hole. We will have the numbers from Wall Street and the rest of the day's business news next time on Marketplace.
Tonight at 6, here on WJCT News 89.9.
On the next Fresh Air, how the growing use of automation is eliminating jobs and sophisticated algorithms based on artificial intelligence are affecting our lives in unseen ways. We talk with New York Times tech columnist Kevin Roose. His new book is Future Proof: 9 Rules for Humans in the Age of Automation. Join us
Today at noon on WJCT News 89.9.
Recomposition is the fancy word being used for a process that gives your body back to the earth. The world's first full-service human composting funeral home is now up and running in Seattle, and others are looking to follow. We'll dig into this new way to go green. I'm Jen White. That's next time on 1A.
Today starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. Jax Metro, also known as the Self-Help Credit Union, is making some strides on the city's north side. Tom Larson is Director of Business Development there, and he's on the line with some news. Hey, Tom, good morning.
Good morning, Melissa.
So Jax Metro has been serving the city for nearly 100 years. They joined your organization, Self-Help Credit Union, a few years ago. And you're in the business of lending and investing, building wealth, helping people of color become homeowners, women, and other underserved groups too. And you're expanding. So this is exciting news, particularly in the pandemic. What's happening?
Well, we have opened a new branch on Jacksonville's north side in the burgeoning area around River City Marketplace. And we serve pretty much Nassau County all the way down to downtown from that area.
That's a big area. And, you know, you're in the business of operating a nonprofit credit union, but this is really also a story about community development across the city. The urban core, the northwest side, the east side, up by the airport. Can you share a little bit about this mission and what you're engaged in?
Well, like credit unions around the country, we are a nonprofit, but we are designated in some special ways to serve people who have been not well served by mainstream financial institutions. We are a designated community development financial institution. We get to work with some special characteristics under the Department of Treasury. We have some access to loan products that help us serve people who have not been able to qualify otherwise. And we also are mission-driven into areas that support child care, access to business opportunities, especially for women and people of color. We also have rural programs, but a lot of what we do is trying to help people reach the American dream, the home ownership aspirations of many who are sometimes daunted by circumstance or history in their families or locale.
Yeah, because home ownership is often how generational wealth gets passed down. And the barriers to home ownership are higher for the communities that you serve.
Yes, home ownership is the greatest way that Americans accumulate family wealth. And, you know, it's a pathway for people. You know, youth entering into the workforce need to learn how to engage in savings and to move towards home ownership in their career and in their lifestyle. And a lot of what we do is supporting financial empowerment, education, and through the tools in our consumer credit union to help people reach for that goal of home ownership, where many people enjoy the wealth accumulation they need for their family.
Now, as you said, you've opened up in the River City Marketplace. This is a shopping center that has seen enormous growth in recent years. Anyone who's driven north along I-95, you can see it right there by the airport. That's a strategic location for you.
It is, because it's an area of town that is growing with modest to nice homes, and it's an area where there's quite a bit of multifamily residential construction and capacity being built for people needing homes. And the location we have is on the east side of the River City Marketplace area, right off of Main Street. And then to the east of that and north of there, there's quite a few homes and small businesses landing.
So this is great news for anybody who needs to take advantage of this financial empowerment. Membership open to anyone in the community, yeah?
Yes, and we have both a special relationship because of our history as JEA's House Credit Union, if you will. We started serving utility workers for the city long ago, but we became a community-based credit union, and we have different sorts of membership arrangements depending on whether you're a JEA bill-paying customer. You can become a member for free, or you can join our Center for Community Self-Help for a one-time $5 contribution, and then you become a member.
It's the Self-Help Credit Union. You also know them as Jax Metro, now operating at River City Marketplace. Thank you, Tom. He's Tom Larson, Director of Business Development there. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
And that is our show. Thanks so much for listening today. And thanks to all of our guests and callers. Our producer is Heather Schatz. Josh Torres is show director. Station news director is Jessica Palumbo. Bill Bortsfield is our digital editor. Keep those emails coming. We really appreciate your feedback. Send them to firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. And if you missed any part of today's show, guess what? Our podcast is up later today. It is every day, wherever you like to listen. You can also download the WJCT app and listen there. I'm Melissa Ross. This is First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. We'll be right back here again at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Have a great day.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida